I would have rather had this than strep or really some of the colds. My kids, we would have never had a clue that they had it, except that we knew we had it. So
while 13 got it, there are 63 of us. So we have to realize 50 did not.
The best thing that could probably happen to you as a healthy person is to get this, because you will finally be able to let it go.
Hi, Dr. Shetlin here with our Health and Immunity series. I'm here with Connie, Erin, and Kate, and they have an amazing story to tell, both sad and powerful, in how the human body and its amazing healing potential and the immune system and how it heals, how it helps fight viruses, bacteria, cancer so well on its own. Your story is actually based around virus. We're talking about this corona stuff that's in everybody's face these days. And ladies, if you wouldn't mind just taking just a minute, I'm going to ask each of you. Connie, just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are and what you do now, and then Kate and Erin will ask you.
Well, I'm a mother of 10 children, and I'm 77 years old. I have a bachelor's degree. I was a teacher, but then had my family, so I've been a homemaker all of my life. And a newly called widow, and am learning to cope with that. And
so you're a widow from COVID?
Yeah. My husband passed away March 22nd.
From coronavirus.
And
and if I understand right, he was the first one to have that problem with the coronavirus in Utah and actually pass away in Utah.
That's correct.
All right,
Correct.
thanks.
So I think the isolation and the quarantining and all of the closed society has made my role as a widow doubly difficult.
Yes, sure. So directly we know, Connie, you lost your husband due to COVID and Corona or COVID-19, and Erin and Kate, that was your dad, and you have two very interesting stories to tell because you were there the whole time, around him the whole time, exposed to him the whole time. And if you guys wouldn't mind just giving us, the listeners and viewers, a little history, and whoever is best to tell the story, maybe Connie, it's you, maybe one of you daughters want to step up, but give us the history of your husband or your father's health up to the point he came down with COVID, and then what happened, how things unfolded.
All right. Well, my husband had a predisposition to pneumonia. We served a mission in the Marshall Islands where a fungus was growing, which caused a double pneumonia, and we had to be evacuated from that mission in 2007. And every year from that time, he tended to get pneumonia, so his lungs were compromised. He was 79 years old, and through the years, he began to have back problems, and in the 3 months prior to his death, he had 3 cortisone shots in his spine because of pain, back pain. He also began to be, he had had 4 major surgeries in 4 years, hip replacement, knee replacement. And each time he did, I noticed he got more and more muddled in his thinking. He was less sharp. He was an attorney by profession, but finally just retired because it was just difficult to keep all the facts in his mind. And so there was kind of a steady decline in those ways, but as far as general health went, he was great. We actually, our last trip together was the last week of February, first week of March. We did a river trip and he was wonderful. We had a group of 26 people that went on the river trip. However, he did not get corona there. Not one other person in our group of 26 had corona. So we suspect got it when he came back. The statistics that we found in our family who've had the corona, it seems to manifest itself about 3 to 4 days after exposure.
So if I understand right, he had quite a few health conditions prior to the COVID-19, so he was pretty susceptible to some problems anyway. But what's interesting with your family and your family story is you had, did you say you had 8 children?
10.
You have 10 children.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure a bunch of grandkids.
Right. All of them really many of them were exposed because when we got home from our river trip the first week in March, we went around to see all the family to tell them about the trip. So had we had COVID, we would have contaminated the whole family. But none of them got them at that time. But then as I actually was the first one to get COVID, and I got that on March 17th. I had fever, chills, and headache. But after 3 days, he began to get the chills, and I'm always concerned for his health because of his predisposition to pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
So I took him to the doctor, and he was tested for COVID. They didn't test me because remember, this was March 19th early on, and they said, we don't have that many test kits. We know if he has it, you had it. And so anyway, he went into the hospital. We took him in because actually he was dehydrated Friday from the chills, and he wasn't drinking enough fluids because he just slept all the time. And so I took him in Friday evening. He was admitted about 11 o'clock that night. My son came and stayed with him through the night so I could go home and rest. And so it's hard to know how long my symptoms lasted because I then was immediately in a mode of taking care of him. And so he was actually just in the hospital all day Saturday, and he passed away Sunday morning at 7 a.m. And so then we planned his gravesite service 2 days later because all the kids had come. And so I felt a lot of things that I thought might have been the shock from his passing, but maybe it was Corona. I don't know. I was exhausted.
Probably both.
And so, but out of the kids, once his test result came back as COVID, then they wouldn't let us in the hospital. So that, it was just very, very early in this whole thing. We'd come home from the trip, we'd gone to the temple, we'd gone to our children's, we'd gone to church. They didn't close down really till that Sunday. They closed, down church and the temples and everything, and he passed away the following week. So that's why he was the first one in Utah to pass away. It was just very early.
Interesting. Did they do the respirator for him?
It was really interesting. They x-rayed and it showed pneumonia. So that was their major concern. And so they put him on an IV with antibodies in it for the pneumonia. He had a very high fever, but they kept drawing blood and they wouldn't give him anything for the fever because they didn't want to mask what was showing up in his blood work. So he only had a cannula for oxygen. His oxygen never went below 92. So that's really pretty good. But I think
so interesting.
It is because mine went to 92, and I was fine.
But I think what happened with the blood work, and then when we got the medical report, because remember, when his test results came, then they made everybody leave Saturday night. So he was alone Saturday and passed away early Sunday morning. So I asked for the medical report to see what had happened. And I think the corona attacked the heart, the brain, even his kidneys, it said, and the lungs. So it was more than pneumonia in his case that took it. I think he had sepsis by then.
Yeah.
And he went really rapidly.
Okay, so it happened rapidly. He had a lot of stuff going on. It looks like he had pneumonia going on, which was interesting because with COVID, from what I'm understanding, it's not like pneumonia. It's the oxygenation problem distally in the body, but not in the actual lungs. Typical flu leads to pneumonia and kills people. COVID doesn't lead to pneumonia; it leads to oxygen deprivation elsewhere. So now I'm curious about that diagnosis. But then, now Kate, you were also diagnosed with COVID. And what happened with you and your family with that?
So I was at the hospital with Aaron. I was in the morning. I relieved one of my other brothers that was there in the morning about 10 o'clock, and I was there probably till about 1, and then Aaron came. And when we were there, the hospital was great. They treated it as if he had COVID before we knew he had COVID. So those of us that went in, had a face mask on. I had an eye shield. I had gloves. I was very careful. I didn't touch him too much. And then anytime I did, we immediately sanitized, did whatever we needed to do. And he did not have a mask on. I did, but he probably should have had a mask on versus me. But anyway, and then the time I went home, I didn't touch anything. Came into my house, my husband opened the door. I went to the shower, immediately washed everything in hot water. I mean, we tried to be very careful. And then I came back later, and when I came back about 4 o'clock, I brought her a meal, and he had deteriorated quite a bit. He was very restless, trying to get out of bed and not aware of where he was, trying to pull his IVs out. And so I then asked the nurses if I could stay as well, because it was one person in the room at a time. I just said, he was a big man. And so then I helped her with him. But it was interesting. She didn't have gloves on. And then I don't think you had the eye protection either, did you? Mm-mm. She didn't have eye protection. My other sister didn't have, because they just gave what they had, the hospital. But it was funny because out of those 3, I'm the one that got it, and they didn't. And I was the most protected. So,
gotcha.
So it was just kind of, I mean, there was one point he coughed, and I didn't have time to put it on yet. I turned my head, so arguably, I guess it could have been in that moment or not. But it was just interesting because even with our precautions, I still got it. Mine didn't show up, the symptoms. So we were very kind of hyper aware of any symptoms we were having, because the health department, then we immediately all went into quarantine. Any of us that had been by him went into quarantine. So we went home from the hospital, and because I was in quarantine, my family was in quarantine. None of us left the house besides going to my mom, who had it, and back. And the health department dropped us off a chart for 2 weeks where we would monitor our fever, or if we had a fever, our temperature every morning and night. And then it had symptoms. One was a cough. The other was, what was it? Our temperature, and then any other symptoms. There was anything, shortness of breath. So we were very almost hypochondriac in a way, where you're like, okay, I coughed once today. So we were hyper diligent of marking anything every day that we had. I was really quite fine. And about, there was a couple times though, we would go walking in the morning, and I would say to her, so I coughed a few times or this, I feel fine. And anyway, and it was almost like we were like, well, maybe, because we were so surprised we hadn't gotten it. Well, at this time, my brother, 24 hours after my dad, who was also with my dad, he was the last person, him and another sister. And my sister, Amy, was there. She did not get it, but Jeff did. And so Jeff was the last person with my dad, and I don't know that he had anything. I don't think he wore anything, but he might have done a mask. But anyway, within 24 hours, he was sick, and he had it worse than anyone, I would say, including dad. Even though my dad passed away from it, my brother was severely sick for 2 weeks, had a high fever. I think he said he had a little bit of the delusional thoughts, and he quarantined in his house for 2 weeks from his wife and kids. But he had a high fever for 2 weeks straight and was very, very sick, but never went to the hospital, just kind of stayed, and he's great now. He's totally fine now. And none of his family got it. And anyway, so. I think it's a really important
area to pause, because the germ theory that, our medical allopathic model has been around, I'm not picking on our medical model. I'm really grateful for all the heroes that are out there that are trying diligently to work in the system that they are designed to work in, to take care of us. But unfortunately, the system is now set up to take the doctors and the nurses out of critical thinking and just have them follow a flow chart of what to do. Oh, somebody shows up with this, do that, do this, do this. And it's not always the right choice. And the sad point is, when we break down the germ theory or virus theory or this kind of thing, we're all going to get exposed to stuff. So I mentioned in some of the earlier episodes how in Guyton's medical textbook, it tells us that each of us are fighting viruses, bacteria, and cancer every day. But it's the job of our immune system to recognize those foreign bodies in the body as non-self and take care of them. Mm-hmm. And we think that if we sneeze on somebody, that they're going to get sick.
Right.
But the fact is, and your family's a perfectly good story, because we used to use this in school when they would teach this to us. Because as a chiropractic physician, we try to take the allopathic model and still look at a natural model and give the human body a chance that it's a healthy organism trying to stay healthy, rather than we're born sick trying to stay healthy.
Sure.
So we look at it and go, okay, they used to tell a story of, if you got people on a boat, which we have exactly when these things came out, some people would get sick on these cruises, a whole bunch of people wouldn't. Why not? Because their immune system is strong enough that these opportunistic viruses or bacteria or whatever can't take hold. And your family is a perfect story of this, where you guys had direct exposure to the coronavirus or COVID-19, and yet some got really sick, some got a little sick like flu symptoms, and most had no symptoms or didn't experience it at all.
Yeah.
Right.
So the sad thing is where society is now, it's like, oh, we're so fear-driven that even the health, because that's what's considered a healthy individual. Oh, you're asymptomatic, but you've been exposed to it. That means you're healthy. Your immune system is strong and functional. But today, in today's world, it's like, oh my gosh, if you're not wearing a mask, you're like a walking zombie that could infect somebody else. It's weak, rather than living and thriving in our strengths. So I just want to thank all three of you again for being on this to help share this story. But let me just get out of the way and let you go ahead and continue with what you were saying. I just had to kind of bring
No, I love that you said that, because it's very interesting, especially getting it. And I hope everyone knows when we're talking, we have no desire to offend anyone. No one is, half the people are going to agree, half the people aren't. We can see both sides, and to each his own, and to respect everybody. We understand. We know what it is to lose someone. We understand the fear of it. We also see the other side of where we got it, and it was okay, and so we want to stay in the middle, not offending anyone. But to that end, what you just said, interesting, because I remember thinking one time that I wanted to say to people, gosh, I kind of hate to disappoint you, but this is better than you think it's going to be, because it's almost like we're all expecting to die. We're all expecting the worst case scenario, when the reality is that is such a small case scenario. Does that discount death? No, it's horrible to lose someone to this. It's horrible to lose someone to anything. However, I think sometimes it takes away the reasoning behind this, and you start looking, you're like, hold on, I'm okay. And I walked out of my house. So by the time I got it, it was actually about 12 days in, when I woke up one day and it sounded like I had laryngitis. And I felt like I was wearing a corset. Or if you've ever been, anyone who's watching this has been pregnant before, felt like 9 months pregnant, when you're just like, holy cow, I just can't breathe as well. But it was in my chest too. And just tight. But it was, I've had pneumonia multiple times. I've had bronchitis. And it did not feel like that. It felt like, if I could describe, maybe if you were at a really high elevation and you just weren't getting enough air, or maybe a scuba diver when you come up the bends. I don't know what that feels like, but it just felt like someone had turned my oxygen lower, if that makes sense. So as I'm going up the stairs, I'm panting, but I can't breathe in deep. So it was like it was just a weird, but I wasn't gasping. It just was like someone had just given me only a fourth of my lungs to use. And so to that end, the biggest symptom I then had was anxiety, because now you're like, okay, I never felt something like this before. This is new. And you start to feel like, okay, I'm okay in this moment, but what if it gets worse? And then that's where the anxiety, which is, I would say, the number one symptom, comes in, which is so understandable. And then having just lost someone to it, and then hearing the news, all of a sudden I'm like, well, am I going to die? Which is really, and I hate to say silly, but kind of silly of me, because I know I don't fit the criteria. I'm a very healthy individual. I run 5 miles a day. I exercise. I eat right. But because of everything I'm seeing, I'm like, okay, trying to have reason that I know I'm probably going to be totally fine. But because of everything I'm seeing, I'm now battling this, monster. And so really it got to a point where somebody was actually a huge answer to prayer. I didn't even know him, but he was directed to me. And it was probably 1 a.m. and I couldn't sleep. I had laid down and really felt like I couldn't breathe super well, but I knew I'd called my brother, he's a respiratory therapist. And I said, I just need to know, at what point do I go in? Because I feel like I'm okay. I'm at 92, but if it gets worse. And he just said, if you're getting up and you're just really struggling to breathe, you're going to pass out, which I did feel like I was going to pass out a couple times. He said, you will know. But he said, just try and calm yourself down. And I thought, okay, I am okay. I feel like I'm okay. It's just different. But anyway, this man messaged me, and he said, me and 15 other members or 10 other members of my family had it. You're going to do great, which kind of seems like this insensitive, like, oh, you're going to be fine. It was exactly what I needed to hear. He was like, you are going to be just fine. And all of a sudden I was like, I am going to be just fine. I am not my dad's scenario. I do not have these predispositions, I don't have something lurking in me, and it just did no good to think like that. And the minute he said that, my whole mindset shifted. And all of a sudden I'd go outside. My mom came over a couple times and I would just breathe in and breathe out slowly, focus on the positive, try and read an uplifting book, look at the sun and just go, I'm okay. I'm okay. But it's very interesting to have to do that when everything in the world is telling you, you're not okay. You're not okay. You're going to die. You're going to die. And I had to go, I'm okay. I'm not going to die. I'm okay. I'm not going to die. And then it's very interesting because if you wanted to get health care, people don't want you to come in now. So now it's a very interesting thing because you're very much alone, because it's like, well, you can go to the emergency room. Well, I had something in my eye the day Dad died, so nobody would look at me. I don't blame him at all, but I had to go to the emergency room, paid $600 for a doctor to swab out a little thing in my eye because nobody wanted to see me. So then that brought up all these thoughts of, hold on, I know we're trying to not have people die of coronavirus, but do we understand in our haste to prevent coronavirus deaths, there are other deaths happening? There are people who are not getting treatment for cancer. There are people who have depression. There is the illness of anxiety. There's the illness of people who are being abused. There are all these other things. And that became very concerning to me because I thought, we're so 100% focused on coronavirus deaths. We have no percent left to give to anything else. And that's unfortunate. True. And that is
so sad.
That's the
fear. Nail on the
And can I just make one point? Out of the 13 of us that did get coronavirus, not one other person of those 13 went to the doctor or were hospitalized. And and really, I was shocked to find out my husband had it. I just felt like the symptoms were not that bad, not as bad as any flu I've had. Now, the other thing you mentioned about the masks, we wear masks in public just to let other people know that we respect. But I have a daughter that went in to get some food last week from a restaurant just to pick it up to go. And so she just ran in to get it and forgot her mask, which was in the car. But she's had corona. Not only has she had it, she's donated her antibodies, has donated plasma. So she ran on to get the order, and another guy was in there, just kept giving her dirty looks. And when he picked up his order and passed her, he called her a bad name.
The B word.
And then she just shook her head and said, she didn't say anything to him, but she said, isn't it a shame now wearing the mask has become a judgmental issue? And instead of
on both sides,
instead of asking people or assuming there's a reason you're not wearing a mask, there may be a very good reason, but now the mask has become the issue.
Well, and I would say really quick, what's interesting is that daughter has lupus, which is very interesting because I think there's another facet of this where people assume, okay, I'm older, if I get this, I'm gonna die. I have autoimmune, if I get this, I'm gonna die. I have this, I have asthma, if I get this, I'm gonna die. And I'm like, whoa, everybody stop. We are not seeing a billion lupus deaths. We are not seeing a billion, these deaths on the news. So why are we fixating like, if I have asthma, I will die. If I have this, I will die. No, if I'm old, I will die. My mom did great. She did great with it, and that's my sister with lupus did great with it. Does that mean everyone with lupus is going to do great with it? I don't know, but it surely doesn't mean everyone with lupus is going to die who gets it, or everyone with asthma is going to die if you get it. So I think that's the other side. When that man did that to her, it's kind of sad because you're like, take 2 minutes and ask her, why aren't you wearing a mask? Well, I've already had it and I actually did okay with it. I have antibodies, and that's why. I think it also goes the other side. We heard on the news of the girl that wore a mask and someone coughed in her face, mocking her for wearing one. How rude, how silly. She has a daughter at home with disabilities. And so that's okay. It's okay for people to wear them or not wear them. But certainly the assuming is just toxic and ridiculous. We have no idea why people wear them or don't wear them.
Well, we don't. And I think that's one of the crimes for society in this day and age is this judgment that we've decided to do. So you bring up really two very important points, and just a shame in society, because humanity has so much love and so much compassion to give, but it's so easy when the chips are down for us to get stuck into labels and judgment. And the mask is such an easy external one for us to do. And people are thinking, oh, you don't have one, you're trying to harm other people. No, that's not, I'm sure that's not the people's intention. So you got to put that to rest. There are reasons people aren't wearing masks. And my wife gets the looks all the time. A, she's fighting cancer. She's not supposed to wear a mask. B, she's deaf. She can't read your lips when you're wearing a mask. So for her, it's really irritating when people are wearing masks. And, you know, even at the hospital, the caregivers just get like, look, we can hire another third body to come in here that could potentially be a carrier with an interpreter, or you could just move your mask for a second and talk to us.
And
so
it's
just funny. Yeah. But the problem is the media has really fear-mongered us into not even trusting our own human, innate, God-given intelligence of the immune system. We think that, oh my gosh, unless we have a vaccine or something that we make, the human body cannot take care of itself. Which is just a shame.
I love that you said it. It's interesting because our cousin's a doctor, and I was talking to him about it, and he said, people have lost their common sense. And he said, even in the medical community, said that's most shocking to me is people who know better that have lost some common sense. And not everyone, and certainly I'm not trying to bag on anyone, but I think that's what fear does, is we lose our common sense and we lose our ability. And I think most people are educated. We can make a valid decision on things, you know. So I think an ongoing issue that we always hear about is vaccines. Some people, I think, vaccinate, and some people don't want to vaccinate. I don't care either way what you decide to do. That is okay with me. I don't know why you're making that decision. And really, frankly, it doesn't matter. That's not my business. I choose to vaccinate my kids. I'm going to vaccinate my kids. If you don't want to, that's fine. The issue I have with vaccination, corona, any of this is when you want to now shut down the whole school because, you know, it's not safe for my kid to go because of coronavirus, so we're not going to have school anymore. Or it would be similar to saying, I'm not going to vaccinate my kids, so I want the whole school not to vaccinate any of the kids so we're all the same. Well, we're not going to do that. That's ridiculous, right? Let's live together. So we have a school. Let's come. We have coronavirus. Someone's going to get it. I guarantee at school, people are going to get it. So we're just making a choice. Are we living with a pandemic or are we not? Do we live in our houses for the next 3, 4, 5 years? Or do we go to school and keep living? And both are going to have repercussions. Both are going to have deaths. Both are going to lead to suicide or depression or deaths of coronavirus or job loss or whatever it is. And I think we get in the mindset of, no deaths. We have to stop this. We're not going to stop this any more than we stop the flu every year.
There's no stopping a virus from going through human race.
Yeah.
And it's probably mutated 100 times since March. I mean, viruses are constantly changing, which is why, and unfortunately people are not thinking with their logic cap, it is physically and scientifically impossible to make a vaccine for a virus because they change too fast. When we try to guess next year, that's why the flu vaccine's got like a 13% success rate because we're trying to guess for next year. Right. Anyway, but I know vaccines is a really touchy subject for people, and I love your perspective. Look, just if you want to vaccinate, great. If you choose not to vaccinate, great. We're still got to live together, so move forward. Don't be all
forward. And I love when you say even about the flu vaccine. If I'm honest, my poor doctor is going to kill me for saying this. Every year, it's like, are you going to get the flu vaccine? Will you get? And I don't. It's nothing against. I might be the biggest idiot in the world. I did one year. Honestly, it was money. It cost me $600 to vaccinate our whole family. Would I be devastated if something happened to one of my kids? Yes. Would I carry that forever because I didn't vaccinate them and get the flu thing? Yes, I would. Unfortunately, I still don't do it. Sometimes I feel like I should, but I've never gotten I have gotten the flu once. Ironically, it was after they did the nose thing on me, but. So most of the times I don't, but it's interesting as we talk about the mask thing, I'm like, this is no different than if we freaked out every year people who don't take the flu vaccine, right? Yeah. Everyone, if it was everywhere, why are you not getting the flu vaccine? Why? But we don't. We allow people to choose. We hope, we encourage, we explain why, we allow them to choose. Why with this is it so much bigger, so much? Well, because it's new. this is not going to be the only thing we get. The coronavirus is not going to be the end of all of this. There will be another and another and another. So wouldn't it be so nice if we just allowed people to make an educated decision on their own? And if I have an issue with that, then I can move a little bit back from someone who's not wearing a mask. That's okay. That doesn't offend me. I go to the store without a mask on. I'm sorry if anyone thinks that's selfish. I've had it. I don't think I am going to get it again in the same way that someone who has the flu doesn't get the same strain of the flu in the same season. Now, could that mutate and I could maybe get a different strain of it next year or in 3 years? Sure. And then when I wear a mask, yeah, I probably would. Right now, I'm not going to. I've already had it. But that's no disrespect to anybody else. It just seems pointless to me. So my husband got it. I got it. All of our kids got it. And they got it from me. So anyway, none of us.
Everybody got better. Fine. So
they were better than. I would have rather had this than strep or really some of the colds. My kids, we would have never had a clue that they had it, except that we knew we had it. So because we were monitoring us, I knew 100% my husband had it. Both of us, our only symptoms were dry. I had when I say dry, it's not like a dry that I have ever experienced in my life. It was crazy dry to the point where my tongue would stick to the roof of my mouth. Both of my ears hurt, like I felt like I had ear infections. And then my nose it was like any mucus, any fluid in my body was gone. So my eyes were super dry. When I would try and blink, they would stick. And then, so that's kind of where I didn't know I had the virus, but I knew it was different enough that I guessed I probably did. And that was about day 12. And I sounded like I had laryngitis. Interestingly enough, about a week before, I've had anaphylactic shock before from food allergies a couple times. And I told my husband probably 3 different times I was wearing the mask. And this has nothing to do with the mask. I just didn't know why I was feeling this way. So I said, I think I'm having an allergic reaction to my mask. I feel like I just didn't understand what it could be because we're not going anywhere, right? So I haven't eaten anything weird. And I'm like, I can't breathe. I feel like I'm having this allergic reaction. So I would take it off. And then, but finally I realized when I woke up one morning, I was like, it's not the mask. I think I have the coronavirus. And that's when it was just dry. And the dry was so annoying. You couldn't drink water. It didn't relieve it. And then just the shortness of breath. And that was my only 2. And then frequent urination. Very weird. I don't even know if that's a symptom, but a couple people in our family, probably about 4 people said the same thing. I'd get up like 8 times a night. And my brother said the same thing. And my sister said the same thing. So I don't even know if that's a symptom. I might be disclosing a new symptom here, but it's just
I had that symptom, and I also had the sleep, like couldn't sleep for like 2 weeks. I just could not sleep.
But you didn't.
But I didn't have it.
Yeah, so that's just normal. Yeah,
I think I was having symptom pain.
Sympathy pain. Yeah. So then my husband got it. Probably my kids got it first. I tried to self-quarantine for a little bit, but you have to understand, by the time I'm called and said, hey, you have this, it's now been 12 days since my dad's died. I've been around my family. So at this point, I'm like, they probably have it or they're going to get it. And so I had to make a decision. It was not one that I made easily or just was rash about, or, it was hard. I was nervous. We were still living in that time of fear. And it's so understandable that people get nervous when they have it. That is so understandable. But when they called and told me, my 4-year-old is laying on my side with his face right by mine. And all of a sudden I look at him and I'm for a minute and thinking, oh my gosh, did I just pass this to him? Is he going to die? I mean, all those things that everybody else, even though you rationally know, probably not, you get this nervous feeling. But I looked at my husband and I just said, so what do we do? It is what it is. And he just said, it is what it is. And so I tried to be careful and do what I could, but the control was out of my hands. And honestly, the thing I say to people now who are, I don't want to say type A, but I might say type A, and I might be a little type A, so I'm going to say it, or just really paranoid. They'll say, oh my gosh, what would happen? I say, the best thing that could probably happen to you as a healthy person is to get this, because you will finally be able to let it go. And that's, my brother was freaking out to all of us. I mean, really, really more than anyone. And when he got it, 180 like that, all of a sudden he's rational. All of a sudden he's like, we can be around him again. And he would say it too. But honestly, I said to him, the biggest blessing was you getting it, because you finally came back and realized, oh, okay, I'm okay. And then it just took it away. And so it wasn't such a way for me.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
hold on a second. So everybody was really wound up, So everybody was really wound up, stressed, paranoid. Then somebody got it and finally realized, oh, now I can let it go because I'm not.
The
Yes,
Because
interesting
now they're
thing is,
knowing instead of the guessing and fear, right?
yes, the interesting thing is all of us that were with my dad, and he was one of them that was with, so there were 5 of us that took care of my dad round the clock till we found out.
Yeah.
So he was only alone for about 5 hours.
Yeah.
And we were all praying by then that he would go, because it was horrid to watch.
We knew he wouldn't make
It was
it.
awful to watch, and we knew if he got it, he would not make it. So all of us kind of had that awareness, and we're praying that it would be quick. But then all of us left terrified that we were then going to pass it to our families.
Yeah.
And so all of us, while the health department was tracking for those 2 weeks, were living in fear and just really.
Well, and even we judged each other. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we're not immune. I mean, we had siblings that were like, oh, you weren't careful.
Oh,
You didn't.
yeah.
And it was amazing how we turn on each other. I mean,
Yeah.
I got it, and they're like, well, you weren't very careful with that. And I'm like, are
Yeah.
you serious? Are
Well,
you
and when
kidding?
she got it, I started bawling, and my mom started bawling, because we're like, crap, now we have to start the count all over again.
And that was
So,
frustrating, because
yeah.
mine was 6 weeks of quarantine after you went through
Yeah.
my whole family. And mentally, I mean, one day I
Yeah.
got up and it had been 2 weeks. I was day 13 and I walk every day, and you have to be able to get out. And I'm conscious, is somebody going to see me and freak out,
Yes,
even though I'm
we
on the
were
other side of the
walking
road, even
super
though I'm
early.
going really early,
Yeah.
but mentally I'm going to lose my mind. Plus we're grieving. And so we're trying to help my mom and all these things, but people are isolated. So I remember one day I got up and I came to my husband and I said, I think I'm having a panic attack. I've never had a panic attack in my life. I am really quite laid back, I would say, about a lot of things, maybe too laid back with some things. And anyway, but I just was like, I am going to have a full-fledged panic attack if I can't get out of here right now. So I put my running shoes on and left, and I just ran, which probably a few days before that I'd walked with her and I couldn't do it. And it was so weird. And I started running and I was fine. And it was like it was just gone. And it was just all of a sudden it was gone. It had left after about 13 days. I still gave it. So the health department released me, and I still gave it another, I think, 4 or 5 days before I went to the store, just because I really wanted to be careful. But then my husband got it. And so then our quarantine started over again, and then the kids got it, and then my husband. But what I was going to say is, when we were trying to decide what to do, I had my own bathroom I was using and my bedroom. Plus we had the earthquake. So we have kids who aren't wanting to sleep by themselves, right? My husband's still trying to work to provide for us. I work part-time. We're grieving. Everybody's just doing the best they can. And my little 4-year-old comes out of my bathroom, and I'm like, don't go in there. And he's holding my medicine cup. So he's now drank from my medicine cup. And I'm like, well, we're done. Okay. I'm like, he just drank, and I joked about it, but I'm terrified. Like, oh my gosh, I left my cup in there. He went in there, and I just realized, I was like, you know what? I am not in control here, and it's okay. It's okay. I don't have to be. It's okay. It is what it is. It's no more. I can't control this. I did the best I can. People are doing the best they can. They really are. And at the end of the day, I think about it like this. If I was sitting on a beach and someone was drowning, I bet a lot of people would jump in to save that person. The problem I have with this coronavirus is I feel like we all are so afraid of getting it. We have people who are drowning, and we become, I hate to say selfish, but without even meaning to be, we're so scared that it's like, don't go. And there's a 94-year-old who's drowning in a care center because their parents haven't come by. There's little kids who can't play with their friends, or people who are drowning all over, and we're all sitting on the beach watching. And that's my struggle, is I'm like, what happened to us going and helping each other? And I am a member of a church, and I called one of our clergymen and said, if someone gets this in our neighborhood, please let me know, because I'm going over and I'm sitting with them. Well, and then we always get this, well, you could get it again. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to live with you could, because we have enough of what is really happening right now to worry about what could happen. I could sprout wings and fly. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to worry about could get it again, because no one has right now. So let's take that off my plate. Let's deal with reality of what's happening in this moment. If that happens again, I'll deal with it. But let's take away all these panics of it could affect kids. It could kill all these people. Okay, but it's not. So let's stop for a minute, go back to rationality, and serve again and help people. And so that's when they said that, they're like, well, we don't. And I'm like, well, just so you know, I'm going over, because I'm not going to let a 90-year-old sit in their house by themselves and battle coronavirus and they can't breathe. I'm not. And that's no different than all the health workers that go every day, right? Because they're not going to let somebody sit there and battle this. So I think where we've tried so hard to quarantine ourselves, we've pulled ourselves away from everyone. And I do have a major issue with that, because I think it's taught us unknowingly, and we're not purposely trying to be, but we've become a little selfish because.
Extremely.
Extremely
it's ruined humanity. It's a ruined human life experience. What we're here for. So
the reason I wanted Kate to come is Kate has been our family front person during this time. She's been the person who has talked to the news. She writes for KSL, and she's also a writer, and so she's just been our family's front man and talking and posting. And so I knew she'd be the one to articulate, and plus the fact that she had it. So she's just a really good representation of our family. And I also wanted to say, well, 13 got it. There are 63 of us. So we have to realize 50 did not.
Yeah.
So it's not nearly as contagious as the fear mongering. I hate to even label it that, as the common thinking has come to believe. It's just like, oh my gosh, if we look at each other, we're going to get this thing. It's really not.
And I also want to say, people were so incredible to our family. We could not believe the amount of kindness that was done to our family, having our dad be the first. Just the outpouring of love that we experienced, every single one of us. And I compiled a list I would have everyone send to me. And it was just beyond a page long of things that people did, creative ways that they served our family and the love we felt. So here you have humanity and what we believe of humanity wrapped up in how our family was treated after, and that's all gone away. And that is so sad to me, that what we saw, the goodness and what we classify as humanity and what we classify as bountiful and what we classify as Utah and what we classify as human nature has totally changed to this, exactly that illustration that Kate said of someone drowning, and all of us are terrified to go in and touch them. And I remember all of us who made the choice to go be with my dad. All of us knowingly made that choice, going, he could have COVID. He had been tested, and we know that hung out there. All of us made the choice to do it because none of us were willing to have my dad go through this alone. And none of us regret that decision, whether we got it or whether we didn't. And I was exposed to my dad, to my mom, to every one of my siblings that got it. I shared my dad's restroom once we went to the hospital and we're in the room with our dad. We were not allowed to leave. So I was in there 7 hours, I think we figured out, and, you know, drinking out of the faucet, using his restroom. I had gloves on at one point in time and went to go to the bathroom and noticed my glove was ripped and started laughing so hard, like, are you kidding me? Because my dad was trying to get out of bed and he was trying to pull the IVs out of his arm, and we're trying to cool him down because his fever is spiked. And we are being, I just kept having this voice in my head laughing, saying, you are covered in germs. Do you understand? You are covered. There is not a thing you could do at this point to make sure. And I just kept laughing, thinking, I know, but I'm trying to do the best I can. And like Kate, I came home, I wiped down my car, every handle I touched, I showered, I washed my clothing, I did everything I could. And you can't tell me why me, who has been exposed so many times, didn't get it. And none of my family did. And we had been with my parents for dinner days before. We had shared popcorn with my dad at the movies the day before. And none of us in my family got it. And the blessing and the gift of that, even for Kate getting it, is our fear went away. And so like Shannon, your wife, who needs to read lips, there have been studies of people who need smiles, that we need human interaction. And the thing that just upsets me is our humanity. I hate going anywhere, not because I'm scared I'll get it. I hate how cold our community has become. I hate walking in the store because no one smiles, no one talks to each other. It just is so sad to me. And I was crying when they came out and said school will come back in August. I was overjoyed. I hate that I have to wear a mask and my students have to wear a mask, because I almost feel like I go deaf if I can't see. I'm constantly saying, what did you say? And so I'm trying in my head to visualize what I can do in my classroom so that my students still see me smile, still know that I love them, still know that I care, and that I can hear what they're saying to me and see what they're saying. So I'm trying to think of how can I do this and not have people angry that I don't want to wear a mask. So I want to wear a shield so at least my students can still see my face. And here's the thing, I want to put a poster on my door that says, been through it. So if you're not worried, I'm not worried. Come in my room, you're welcome in here without any, but I know I can't do that.
You know, another thing that I've been trying to get people to, I've had a few patients that have done this now, but we have some amazing virus killing air filter systems in our office and at home. I've had them at home and office for a year and a half, but they're amazing. It creates an environment that when patients come in and I'm like, look, I'm happy to put on a mask for you. They come in with a mask, new patients, and they're all scared. I point to the air purifier with the little sign that says virus killing air purifier, because it creates a plasma in the air. We can't see it, but it's popping viruses and bacteria like balloons, and then just sterilizing the air and the surfaces, which is so nice. I say, look, if you want to wear it, you can. And just to see their body language go, and then they take off the mask, and we actually have facial expressions while we're meeting together as doctor-patient. I'm not saying not everybody's going to like that. I'm happy to wear the mask if they want to. They want to wear it, they can, but I'm trying to create an environment that's a safe environment. I would like to see more stores and schools do that so that we can remove this firewall between our humanity, like you're pointing out. I mean, I look at this and go, gosh, as a teacher, you're thinking about a lot of things people are not thinking about. And then I think, how are our kids going to behave a year from now into their adult life doing this for a year? How is this going to affect humanity in a deeper level when this just drives in that fear and that distrust at the ages they're trying to develop their brain and develop friendships? I don't see how this could outweigh the fear of the virus, but that's just, I don't know what your perspective is.
Oh, I want to plug in what you're talking about now. I want to get one of those and put it in my room with the poster that says this is a safe zone. Come in. If you feel I need to, I will. If you don't want to, please don't. Here's the thing. One of the last classes that I had with my students online, because we were no longer in the classroom, and it's devastating for them. It's had such a toll for them, and I have missed them so much. But I asked the kids, I said, so honestly, can you tell me what your relationship with your phone is now going to be? Because that's a huge thing as a teacher, the texting and the disconnect with their phones. And so I said, honestly, how do you think? And they said, all of them, I am so sick of my phone. I cannot wait to have human contact and be with other people. And so I'll take it. The fact that we get to all be together, I am thrilled and rejoicing. And if that means I have to wear a mask, then I will pray that somehow I come up with inspiration that when you're talking, you get to pull yours down and then put it back up or something, because I can't have it all of us masked. I can't. I love those kids too much, and I need to see them, and they need to feel that from me. And so I'm just continuing to search for ways, but I'm telling you what, the masked way is not the way.
It's not the way. They do have masks that have clear parts for the hearing impaired. But honestly, I was hearing today that face masks are surprisingly more effective than I would have thought, and at least then you can see the facial expression, because 60% of communication is body language and facial expression.
Yes.
Completely take that away from humanity is it's going to definitely hurt communication and emotional connection for sure.
I agree.
Well, good luck with you and this year. I hope our school leaders figure out a way to either solve this or just get fed up with it and say, let's just take our chances with getting sick. We can't sacrifice humanity for fear of this virus. But that, until enough people say that we're just where we're at. And we've talked about some very interesting factors today. Just going to the grocery store, not pleasant anymore. Just, it's just a sad state of affairs that we're in right now, and I don't know how we got here, and I don't want to get into the political parts and all that stuff right now, but it's when science meets politics, it's a disaster. Which it seems like.
I will say we've had some good interactions too. Even when I don't have my kids, I really appreciate those people that at the store, because we're never masked, and really it's just because I don't even have them. Because we've had it, so it's not a conscious decision I'm making like we're against masks. I'm not at all. I just don't have them. But I do wear them when I have to. That's fine. We get them. But we have had some people that are so kind and talk to my kids still, and I so appreciate it. And I want to tell them, be like, we're not against masks. Thank you for being so kind. We've already had it. And I want to make a shirt that says I'm not against masks. We've already had it, but I am happy to give you a hug. Because if you want a safe hug, I have antibodies, and but it is an ironic thing if you think about the person that you might be shaming or you don't like might be the person that's donating COVID that saved your
That's dad died.
or so,
Yeah.
You just don't know, and maybe not. Maybe that's dramatic, but no, I mean sometimes that.
No, that's not dramatic. That's where we're at. Is we're taking a visual component, the mask, and we're judging based on that without knowing the story. And so I'm just going to share, because actually your story is a perfectly good example of that, where you guys have experienced death in your family. You've experienced some people being sick and getting better, and some people not getting sick at all. And so I just want to finish with a story that's kind of on that judgment mindset of how humanity has this knee-jerk response to judge on visual things, where this gentleman gets on the subway with his kids, and he's just quiet and to himself. He sits down, he's kind of really disconnected, and his 3 kids are running around and jumping and making a bunch of noise and making everybody uncomfortable on the subway. And so finally, one of the subway riders kind of pipes up and says, "Hey, mister, what the heck's the matter with you? Why don't you control your kids? They're bugging the rest of us." And then the perspective switches, and all of a sudden there's understanding. And when we don't have understanding, we have judgment. And he looks up at the guy and goes, "Oh, sorry, we're just coming from the hospital. The kids just lost their mom. They don't know how to handle it. I'm still processing how to handle it." And all of a sudden, everybody in the car has a different perspective of how to handle that. I guess the kids are so bad. Oh, I guess this guy's got stuff to deal with. Let's not judge. But it's just so easy for us to judge with lack of information.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I appreciate you, ladies, all 3 of you, sharing your stories today. And hopefully, sorry, I get a little choked up here. Hopefully, helping humanity realize that, gosh, we got to be a little slow to judge. Doesn't matter about the mask or not. People not wearing masks doesn't mean they're trying to kill other people or be selfish. People wearing masks, they're just trying to be making a conscious effort for what they feel is right, the right way to do stuff. But we can't be drawing lines and judging each other based on this. The human experience is too important for that.
Yeah.
We just need to love. And we're
Nice.
grateful for those who,
The last thing
Who
my
loved
dad said before he passed away to my sister, and he was all kinds of not there, but he looked at my sister and totally lucidly said, "We just need to be kind to each other." And isn't that interesting? And I just thought, we just need to be kind to each other, and we can. We're better than this. And a lot of
We are
people, and I
better.
refuse to think most people aren't doing good right now. I still think most people are. I really do think most
I think
people
we're
are
just
trying.
operating out of
They're
fear.
trying their best. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you
Well,
so
thanks for being with
much,
us today.
Jay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you bet. You guys have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay,
too.
thank you.
Thanks.
Please tell Shannon hello.
Yeah.
I will. Sure.
Yeah.
All right. See ya.
Okay, bye.